Okay. Good afternoon, Palo Alto. How are you doing today? Come on, you can do better than that. You've got to understand the significance of Juneteenth. Juneteenth was a day of celebration because in 1865, when the Union Army got to Texas, they got to the last territory in the old Confederacy that was still actively holding slaves. And as this general wrote the order and told the slaves they were free in 1866 in black churches in Texas, they started celebrating this day of freedom. Now, the reality is, the reason so many of us are out here today is because we've realized that the celebration of mine and many ancestors of freedom has not been fully realized. And as we gather today to hear stories from people of Palo Alto, and I want you to listen to these young people and other people from our community that are black speak about the reality of their experiences. I want you to encourage them and let people know that we are here for freedom. Who's here for freedom? Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. You could go higher. Come on, higher. Are you really here for freedom? Come on, can you go higher? Higher, higher. I think it's only appropriate that we start with a prayer just to reflect the first Juneteenth in 1866 was in a church. Let us pray. God, as we are gathered here in this afternoon in this community, we are faced with a country that is filled with strife, where we are abundantly clear that lives of people are not being seen as equal. Where between policing and systemic racism, we see people dying day by day and being taken out by a virus virulently. Right now, as these people stand in this square to hear the stories of power and encouragement, may we be the seeds to be the seeds of change that our country needs to see. I pray in this gathering and that every person that hears my voice is the beginning of a new era in this country, God. So I'm so grateful that you do answer prayers. In your holy name, amen. Our first speaker will be the president, the president of the Black Student Union at Pali High Michaela.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michaela Miller. I'm a part of the graduating class of Palo Alto High School and former president of the Pali Black Scholars United Club, or BSU. Being a part of and running BSU was both the best and worst thing for me during my time at Pali. BSU was my home on campus. It was where I found my voice and my culture, and where I learned to love myself and my beautiful black features. BSU taught me how to be unapologetically me, and that I was capable of doing so much more than the bare minimum. But unfortunately, BSU also highlighted the prejudice acts, discrimination, and blatant racism that I had been sweeping under the rug. These are things like teachers assuming that I need extra support without checking in first, staff being extra watchful around me and a group of my friends, or making us relocate for seemingly no reason, students side-eyeing us and drawing up when we pass them in the halls, sports directors who only care if their minority students are passing their classes in order to play and not helping them excel to further their education, administrators who doubt we can get into more rigorous schools and making us apply to way more than we actually need to. Oftentimes, I let these things slide without a second glance, but today I stand here using my voice and understanding that it's not unfortunate that BSU taught me all these things. It's unfortunate that I didn't recognize them sooner. For too long, I thought this was the norm. I always thought that being black in a school full of white was the problem, but it's deeper than that. It's the disproportionate amount of privilege that allows for those with it to follow the straight path that was paid for them by those without it. Racism stems from stereotypes and prejudice that gets carried into our schools, governments, medical care, and policing systems. The very systems that we as a society and as a community rely on to serve all of us in the best way possible. But unfortunately, a virus of racism has taken over, and the community, the black community, my community, is being affected in the most heart-wrenching, debilitating way you could possibly imagine. For some of you, this may seem new, but for us, this is just life. As a collective, we need to start paying more attention to the little things and speak up about them. For too long, we've been preaching how to be an upstander and not practicing. Today, we leave here as upstanders. We won't stay silent any longer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Chancellor. Oh, she wants me to stand. My wife's telling me to stand up. My name is Brian Chancellor, and I am Palo Alto High School class of 1987. Born in Columbus, Ohio. My family moved here in 1972. My father was born in Columbus, Ohio, and left there when he earned his PhD in education administration. That was also with a little bit of a push from my mom, who was raised in West Virginia, a coal miner's daughter with a third grade education. Now, I will also tell you that I am a reluctant public speaker here today. My mom's grandmother, whom I loved very much and whose father was my hero, my grandmother was quite a believer in God and felt that if you did not believe in him, you would not make it to heaven. And my grandfather did not attend church all that much, but he never yelled and he never swore. I can't say that I am the same. So today, I don't know if you're going to get a little bit of a sermon or if you're going to get a little bit of Richard Pryor. But in all seriousness, one of the reasons why it was important for my mom to leave the state of West Virginia was because of the deep-rooted systemic racism that she experienced there. She does not swim. She has a fear of water, but she was never given the opportunity to overcome that because where she lived, blacks were only permitted to swim in the pool the day before it was closed for the season. It's things like that that many of you have never experienced or never thought about. We have moved here, and many of us have lived here in Silicon Valley because of the opportunities in front of us related to education and jobs and innovation and entrepreneurialism. But let's not fool ourselves. There's not only inequality, there is inequity within our system, and it's systemic. And many of you have never really even thought about that. I thank you for the fact that you're here today. It's a great first step. But the reality is that it's not enough. It's only the beginning. I could give you a long list of things, such as my paternal great-great-grandmother being the product of a rape of her mother at the hands of her master, and the fact that she was given to her white sister as a wedding gift. So my existence is very checkered in and of itself. But when we talk about the perception of opportunity in a place like this, we cannot be fooled. That Michaela already very eloquently spoke about what she has experienced. And the fact is that starting back in the 70s, as a kid here in these schools, I experienced many of those same things. And it's angering and frustrating to hear and to know wholeheartedly that all that crap still happens today. We say that this place is special. I've said that this place is special, and in many ways that it is. But everybody needs to actually actively acknowledge and understand the abuse that black people have withstood for years and years, including today. It's unfortunate that it's taken so many deaths for some people to actually wake up, but I'm happy that many of you finally have. Do not let a day like today be your only method or action when it comes to truly fighting for our country. We are in true crisis. True crisis. Register to vote, get out your vote, talk to people, and get this started. My challenge to you is to do more. Voting is just the beginning, but what are you going to do after today and tomorrow and the next day with your money and with your opportunity? You need to be mindful and aware and observant of microaggressions and flat out avert discrimination that you witness. You need to be willing to step in and intervene and say something, even if it means that you have a sacrifice, because ultimately our goal, when I talk about equality and true equity, is the fact that you, those of you who have privilege, and some of you have privilege that's so far and above that that you don't recognize it, that you're going to have to share more of the pie. Your piece of the pie is actually going to get smaller. But the reason that you need to be willing to give up that piece of the pie is on principle alone. Otherwise, you're full of it. Just straight up. So even with your internal conversations that you have with yourself today, make a decision. Are you part of the change? Are you friend or are you foe? That's what I want to know. Are you friend? When George Floyd was killed, murdered, thank you, I did not have a strong emotional reaction. I had an expletive in my head. Oh, here we go again. But the reason that I did not have a strong emotional reaction is because my people have been through this time and time and time again. Not just 100 years ago, not just 50 years ago, last week, yesterday. Those that we see, because of these devices that are, I'll go on a tangent, messing with our kids' minds, because kids are too involved on those things. You got to get off of that a little bit. Read a book. The exposure that people have gotten because of the videos is helpful. But why? I've asked myself, why now? Why is it different now than it was last week, last month, last year, last decade? People have been getting killed for forever, and nobody has said anything. This is the time to stand up and step forward. Is it? Thank you. At first, I was frustrated when people would say, well, it's because of COVID, and people could, finally saw it and whatever. And that pissed me off. But in the end, if that's the case, I accept it, as long as there is a positive result. Is it because it was so nonchalant and so methodical and so protracted, even with private citizens very respectfully coming in order to intervene, yet they were rebuffed? Ask yourself these questions, because there's a long list of people that you can name off, even in the last number of weeks, who have been killed. Ultimately, for those of you who have privilege and those of you who have not experienced racism and have actually been able to take advantage of it, I'm not here to shame you today. I appreciate the fact that you are here. the fact that there is acknowledgement, but my challenge to you once again is to make sure that this is not just a moment, but that it is in fact a movement, and that you, when you get to your final day, can say to your family, you actually did something and helped create positive change. Not just here in Palo Alto, but within the world.
Hello, everybody. Thank you guys for coming out, first and foremost. My name is Kobe Johnson, Palo Alto High School, class of 2020. And I was born in New Jersey. Now, my parents moved here when I was really young, about 3 years old, because they heard great things about the schools in the area. You know, this Palo Alto school is supposed to be the pride. We're the number one district in the state, according to our leader of the district. And yet, there's so much wrong in our school system. And so today, I want to talk to you more about that. This country likes to see itself as a meritocracy. And as a result, we view school as the great equalizer, where anybody who works hard enough and pulls hard enough can raise themselves up, get an education, and get further in the world. However, for us black people, that couldn't be further from the truth. Here in Palo Alto Unified, we pride ourselves on being one of the best of the best for public school. Our superintendent constantly refers to this district as number one. And yet, our black students only have about coin flip odds of graduating so that they can apply to a California state university. Our students can't breathe. I can't breathe. Parents choose to move here, Palo Alto, because of the schools. Many black families move from all over. They choose to come here and pay taxes for kids to attend these public schools. And yet, they watch as their kids are told, both directly and indirectly, that they aren't smart enough for higher level classes. They can't challenge themselves. They shouldn't challenge themselves. They came to Palo Alto because of the schools. And they end up leaving the district because of the schools. Because in these schools, black students can't breathe. I can't breathe. My parents made sure to surround me with many black friends growing up. And I watched as my black friends ended up leaving this school district one at a time due to various incidents. I still remember when one of my best friends told me that his math teacher said he was a slow learner. He should lay down. He couldn't do it. He couldn't compete in the math, despite the fact that he could clearly do well, and he ended up doing very well. He left that district the following year. He couldn't breathe. I can't breathe. Out of all of those friends going into high school, I was the only one left. Every class I walked into, I felt an intense pressure to prove assumptions about my race wrong. I worked twice as hard in class just so that everybody knew I was capable of doing well, that I deserved to be there, and that I could do it. But in the process of proving people wrong, I was a victim to my own stereotype threat. I became isolated from what little black community there was in our schools. It's my biggest regret that I wasn't involved more in our community. Even when I succeeded, even when I graduated, I still failed. I still couldn't breathe. I can't breathe. School determines the rest of our lives. It can set us up for success or lead us to fail. This Juneteenth, we need to make sure that our voices are heard. And when we do, we need to declare that we want to fix our schools. We want black students to go on to four-year colleges. We do not have institutional, multi-generational wealth to get tutoring, to do well in schools when we might otherwise not be able to. We need to call out, we need to demand that education works for us. We need to breathe. I need to breathe. Thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you for having me. I am Harrison. Our family was from the first blacks to move here to Palo Alto, class of 1991, Palo. My brother and I grew up in a house right across the street from Euphoria, 828 Ramona. I brought a report that I wrote in 5th grade at Addison Elementary School, My Heritage Since Slavery. I want to share a little bit of it for you. My name is Michael Allen Harrison, Jr. I was born November 24th, 1973 at Stanford Hospital in Stanford, California. In this report, I'll be telling you about my heritage as I have been told. Years ago, we were treated brutally by the Indians. Was it because we dressed different? Was it because they had problems with our language? Or was it because we came to their land? Spaniards came from gold and silver. Dutch and Swedes came for furs and trade. The English came for freedom and for a better life. Disease and famine took its toll on Ireland, and since this happened, many Irish came into America. For a while, Orientals came to work on the railroads. During these years, more people came to America than any other place. My heritage, as far back as I was able to learn, went back to slavery times in the United States. Although slavery ended about 120 years ago, that is where names were changed and some families were lost. In my grandmother's house, there's a picture of my great-great-great-grandmother. Her name was Anne. She was brought here from Africa to South Carolina at the age of 13, at which time she was auctioned off as a slave. Because she lost her identity, she was renamed Anne and given the last name of her slave master, Mason. The Mason family moved from South Carolina to Tennessee shortly after Anne became pregnant by her white slave master. After she gave birth to a son named Tom, she took her child and hid in a cave for 6 months. Anne did this because she was afraid the slave master would separate her from her son and she would never see him again. In 1865, when slavery would have been abolished, my grandmother Anne was freed. She only bore one child, and that became my grandmother's grandfather. My ancestors on the Harrison side of the family followed the same pattern on the Mason side. Both go back to slavery and are full of questions about their slave masters. My great-great-great-grandfather name was not passed on down through the family. All that was known about him is he was a cook for General Harrison, his slave master in Petersburg, Virginia. Working in the household for slave masters was a privilege, and it was not known why he was so fortunate. My great-great-grandfather Edward was raised by my great-great-grandmother Amy and his brother Isaac. Isaac was a sharecropper in Wasco County, North Carolina, where he mostly grew cotton, corn, and molasses. My great-great-grandfather Jerry was one of Edward's kids. I skipped that part. On January 12, 1993, he was born in Monroe, North Carolina. Except for the time in fighting in World War I, he stayed in North Carolina until he moved here in 1923, where he brought my grandfather. My grandfather Olin was 4 years old at this time, and he was part of the first class at Addison Elementary. In conclusion, I skipped ahead. There have been a lot of changes for people who either immigrated or shipped to the United States. Some people are able to follow their heritage easier than others because they weren't forced to change their names and leave their country. All right. Okay. Those were kind of the cliff notes of that report. When I got up here, I wasn't sure what I was going to say, what to talk about during this time, but I decided that I would share some of my experiences for you here in Palo Alto. Like I said, our grandfather was in the first class at Addison Elementary School. We went there. And I remember, as most black people do, I remember the first time that I was called a nigger. I was on my way to the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk with my family. And we got out the back of the truck. We were crossing. There's a train bridge. If you've been there, there's a bridge that you could walk across. And as we were walking over to the steps, somebody had yelled out from the back of a pickup truck, "Nigger." I didn't know the weight. I didn't know the meaning, but I could tell that it was coming from a place of hate. Growing up here was challenging. It was different. There are fewer black kids here now, or black families than there were than we were here. I remember first time really feeling different when I was at a party. That was probably my sophomore year, and I realized this is where we stood out and we weren't accepted. We were going to a party, me and 4 other of my black friends. We got to the door, and Debbie Cass was from South Africa. She was white. Didn't understand the global context, but as we went to go into the party, she stopped us. All 4 of us, we sat there in the middle of the walkway. It was like a stream going around rocks, right, or a rock. I watched as my white friends walked into the party. Some of them looked at me from inside, didn't vouch for us, didn't say a word. At that point, I realized, that I was indeed different, and that I was not the friend that I thought that I was to them. It hurt. A couple years ago, my son and his friend went trick-or-treating. We were in old Palo Alto. The Jobs were doing their party thing. Sorry, not Steve, but Mrs. Jobs was doing the party thing, so all the residents were there. I decided to take them around the periphery, because that's where all the candy was going to be, right? If everybody was there doing that, it's the neighbors that were going to pass out their candy. I took Drew and Ryder up to a house, and I looked up, and it all came back. I recognized that the house that they were trick-or-treating at was the house that I wasn't let in. I remember driving down, I remember I was late teens, early 20s. I was driving my mother's car. I'd grown out my beard a little bit. I was going through like a Rasta phase, so I had my little hat. I had the little John Lennon Rasta glasses on, and my mother had a really nice BMW at the time. I remember driving down Middlefield, right where Green is. I was going to pass over into Midtown Palo Alto. As I was passing Green and going up there, I got pulled over from behind, right? Not from the front, obviously, right? But I got pulled over. And then, as you know, there is no parking along Middlefield, so I had to pull into the residential area. I knew that I didn't do anything wrong. It just felt wrong. I pulled over there, and I was upset. It's not the first time that I've been followed, and it's, certainly didn't feel fair. As I looked in my driver's side rearview mirror, I saw the cop get out and put his hand on his gun. He crept out and was slowly approaching me. I've never been more scared in my life. I thought that was it. At that point, I panicked. My mother had a car phone. It was one of those big old ones. You can call in strike coordinates and like the military from. Half the time they wouldn't, get through. And I picked it up to call my mom and said, "Hey, this is what's happening." You know, fortunately, there's a white woman that was watching it, and she came out of her house to ask me if everything was okay. Reflecting upon it and seeing what I do today, I'm wondering if I would have been one of those statistics, right? Somebody else murdered just for the color of my skin. I remember coaching basketball at Green. I left out of it, turned left down California, and I watched an officer pass by me and look up into my rearview mirror, because at this time, I assumed when I passed a cop that I was going to get pulled over. It's happened so many times. I watched him pull a U-turn, follow me all the way over on Fife Avenue. For those of you who know, it's a block street. He followed me all the way in until I parked and kept going. I've been pulled out of my car literally because I fit the description of a hit and run. Pulled up against the tree, hands behind my head as people stared. What people don't understand, it's not just about the beating, you know, it's not the brutality, it's the indignity that you suffer as this cop is there, as when everybody drives by and sees you and it feels that stereotype. Of course it's black, of course he's black, he must have done something wrong. Every time that it happens, you know the next person isn't going to get the same treatment. It doesn't go away. Those scars are still here. You can ask Brian, you can ask Jamal. They'll tell you many stories of when this has happened to us. It doesn't go away. I have mixed feelings about being here today. Honestly, I don't know what to think about it. And these times right now, I'm encouraged to see everyone here, but like Brian, I cannot say that I'm hopeful, because history has shown me something different. You know, we've had a civil rights movement. You know, like Brian said, where was everybody a few weeks back? And then everybody started to claim their white privilege, and it felt to me like it was trending, it was vogue. And honestly, it's hard for me to trust the sincerity of it, because like I said, this is just the beginning. You know, if you're not in it for the long haul, I know you don't know what it is, and, you know, but please, step away now. All right? I know it's hard to change. It's hard to change, especially when you don't have any skin in the game, when you're privileged. But I'm hoping that you will. I'm hoping that you'll learn more. I've seen a bunch of different ways of how you can help and step up and be part, you know, help the black community, because we matter now, apparently. To me, if you want to help, the way to do it is through education. And it's not just learning yourselves, right? It's getting it into the schools, right? Right? High school's too late. High school's too late. You know? My kids know about it. My daughter's 6.5. She has to know about it. She's afraid for me. She has to. So do yours. Okay? You have to demand it in schools. You know, you can't sit back and worry about your test scores and everything is okay. You have to demand the change. We need to teach a real history, right? And that starts with the genocide of the indigenous people, all right? With that being said, you're here. You're here. One last thing about the education. This isn't just about including black studies or ethnic studies. This is about studying your whiteness, right? This is about knowing your own history, and this is about knowing how you affect it, how you affect us, how everybody is affected by it. You know, let's talk about what the United States is, what it's done to people. You know, the narrative about it. Tell me how, at this point, people are still afraid of black people, right? We're the one that's been suffering for the last 400 years, right? It's the narrative, right? And how do you do that? You make us less than human. You make us, you know, the violent people, the people that you're afraid of. How, right? When has there been a mob of blacks that have gone out and killed whites, right? Anybody? Anybody? Right? So understand where it's coming from. Learn your history. Change the narrative. You know, now that you don't have the excuse anymore of not knowing. The information is there. Go out and get it and force it. All right? Force it in the school districts. That's the only way that this is going to change. You can paint the school, you can change the flags, but if you don't change the curriculum, if you don't change the teachers and the books, it's the same. More black everything. Like I said, I want to finish on a positive note. I feel like that's something that I do, but like I said, I can't. You know what I mean? I can't get my hope up. I can't, because it'll hurt too much to see it all washed away. So I'm counting on you. Help. Be better. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Elijah Steiner, and I'm in the graduating class of 2020. I am the vice president for the BSU, same BSU as Michaela, and I'm part of a very large family, and we all send in our stories of how we've experienced racism and how we want to bring about race unity to my little cousin. And she compiled all that and made a poem about racism and the stories of race unity in all my family. So I'd like to share that with you. Racism is everywhere. A conversation for some, a threatening reality for others. Racism is the heel that holds humanity down. It affects the whole world, every country, city, and town. Sun and rain fall everywhere, but invisible greenhouse structures divert it to only sunflowers. Let's make the structures visible so we can tear them down. With every step forward, a breath. Unity of the races seems so logical because it means that the color of our skins doesn't differentiate us. Yet our ego and history as a human race have made it more complicated. The vast majority of us sincerely desire justice and must be unifying rather than divisive. With every step forward, a breath. May the sun of reality shine forth with the rays of conciliation. This intense plume of racial discord be dispelled, and the resplendent light of peace shed its radiance among this American nation. With every step forward, a breath. Race unity means with loving hearts, we must join together in one universal family. Race unity is advancing our discourse with peers and knowing them well enough to ask for their experience. Unity demands much more than mere tolerance. It requires love and is built by it. With every step forward, a breath. Our hearts are woven together in God's tapestry. Peace and unity are good for the soul. Peace and love to everyone that you meet. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. We all used to be black at one point. With every step forward, a breath. Love does not care what color we are. I may be surrounded by the white, but the light of the Spirit shines through me. And even in the midst of sadness and the contingent world do I see. Behold the entire human race as one soul and one body. With every step forward, a breath. Race unity is a state of being where the illusion of our bodies is removed and we no longer see or feel or think of people as separate or others. Race unity is true empathy and social awakening. Race unity is a way of life. We are one, we are one, we are one. So powerful is this light. The earth is but one country and mankind its citizens. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jamal Harrison. I've been here in Palo Alto for 42 years. I have a very different perspective of Palo Alto. To me, I'm going to be more blunt. The reason why I'm going to sit down instead of standing up, I have too much rage inside of me. I am beyond frustrated and fed up with trying to bite my tongue and be politically correct. I'm done with that shit. What we have right now is an opportunity to do some internal reflecting on why are you really here? You can hold the signs. Silicon Valley is very hollow. I work with all the white, privileged, entitled kids. They come to my house, in my backyard. I am a success story. I'm a survivor. Why? Because I'm not mentally enslaved anymore. The school system had failed us all the way through, and they continue to. And it's comfortable because it's not you guys getting squeezed. Gentrification is real. Now, if I was to act upon my rage, it'd be a whole different story. During this pandemic, I got, 6 phone calls from the cops, from my racist neighbor, saying that I'm doing something wrong. It'd be nothing for me to snap his neck. But for what? I have to be there for my kids. Every time my daughter goes out, I'm scared as shit. Why? Because of this behind me. I fit the description of everything wrong with this country based upon somebody's perspective. That's bullshit. Okay? The worst part about it for me is the majority of people here, you're indoctrinated. You're brainwashed. You really don't get it. I might be intimidating because I'm bigger than a lot of people that are here, but you don't know me. I'm a soft soul. I am literally a mentor to so many people here. I'm a life coach. I'm teaching you guys what real life is all about, at least your kids. So what I've experienced is a lot of secrets behind your doors and how you guys talk and how you allow your kids to say the N-word. What are you guys doing? Real shit, what are you doing? The CEOs, the CFOs, the venture capitalists, all the people who are on their high and mighty, fuck that. No. It's you guys. You guys have the opportunity to speak truth to everything in this corrupt-ass system. It's working just how it's supposed to be. That's the problem. This school district has failed everybody nonstop. I, like the rest of the black people that have been there, we're great in sports. We entertain the shit out of you guys. We really are. I'm good enough to get scholarships, but I don't have the college credentials. Why? Because the teachers failed me. I have a 3.7 GPA. I will run anybody over in sports, but I can barely read. I can barely write. You don't give a shit about that as long as I'm making everybody happy that we got these wins, right? I'm going to bring up something specific right now because this is to my heart. And I'm not trying to put it out and be exposed, but we have an athlete that just graduated from Palo that had a 0.5 credit short to be able to go to college for a full scholarship. Who's being held accountable? Who? Nobody worries about it. You guys cheer him on. Oh, good job. You did great. You don't give a shit about him besides that. No mom, no dad, no grandma. Great-grandma's taking care of him. But nobody's going to bat for him when it really counts. That's how hollow you guys are. Real shit. That's how hollow you are. And I am pointing fingers because if you're not teaching your kids about not to say the N-word, you're doing it wrong. You're keeping the system exactly the way that it is. So at the end of the day, you guys have a truth and the mirror is going to tell you what it is. Give yourself a moment to look around. See everybody that's here. Think about it. If they have a mask on, they look familiar to you to some extent. See what they do after this. Not about this march. What do they do with their kids? What are they going to do differently? Are they going to do the same shit that they've always been doing? From what I've seen through all of my years, it's going to be the same. But what I'm not going to do is bite my tongue anymore. So when your kids come to my house, I'm going to tell them the truth. And I'm going to ask them, what are your parents saying differently? And if not, I'm going to bring it a way that you don't want me to. And I'm not threatening you. I'm just promising you I'm going to give them the real. I'm going to be authentic as hell and give them truth. Well, you know I'm talking about, goddammit.
Hello, everybody. My name is Cleo Goodwin. Gun High School, class of 2018. I was a freshman in high school when I learned what Juneteenth was, and it has always baffled me that in the US this still isn't considered a federal holiday. No history lessons, no days off, just another day in the calendar that people may or may not know about. To celebrate the independence of this country and not the souls who built this country makes no sense to me. A country that constantly repeats justice and liberty for all, but ignores the continuous racism brought onto an entire nation of people, and being told to get over slavery, yet slavery is why we're in the mess that we're in now. And without stealing, genocide, and kidnapping, this country wouldn't be half of what it is today. Police have killed approximately 120 people since the murder of George Floyd, and at least 5 black people have been found dead by hanging in predominantly white neighborhoods. Now it just feels like a never-ending cycle and a waiting game between blacks and racists. In my last speech, I asked, why are we still fighting a fight that shouldn't have started in the first place? Now I take it a step further and ask, why are we still fighting a fight that we never started? Because last time I checked, we didn't stuff ourselves in boats to do somebody else's dirty work. We didn't make our existence illegal. We didn't throw ourselves in prison for no reason. We didn't shoot ourselves in the back 12 times with our hands in the air, or face down already handcuffed at the BART station, or walking home from the store. We didn't kill ourselves in police custody. We didn't shoot ourselves while jogging, or asleep in our car, or in our own home, and we sure didn't hang ourselves from trees. We bend over backwards for this country, and yet we are still ignored and we're still treated like dirt. Juneteenth will forever and always be my Independence Day. And until my people get the treatment and the respect that they deserve, I am here to tell you that all Black lives will forever and always matter. Thank you.
That was amazing.
Test? There we go. Thank you. My name is Letitia Burton, and I am a retired teacher from Palo Alto Unified. I was with Palo Alto Unified for about 28 years. But I didn't come to talk to you about being a teacher at Pali. I came to sing for you. Before I do that, though, I do want to say that these are my students from BSU. This is a song that was written by Issei Barnwell, who was a singer with Sweet Honey in the Rock. It's called We Are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of the ancestors. We are the children of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We're daughters of dust and sons of great vision. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We're lovers of life and healers of nations. We're sisters of truth and keepers of faith. We're makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of the ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We're mothers of courage and fathers of time. We're daughters of dust and sons of great vision. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We're lovers of life and healers of nations. We're keepers of truth and we're seekers of faith. We're makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of the ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
That was simply amazing. Come on, put your hands together, please. Please put your hands together. Thank you so much. All right. Right now, one of the things about a gathering like this is a march. Oh, come on, get excited about the march party. So the community can hear Black Lives Matter. Can you say that with me? Black Lives Matter? Oh, I can't hear it. It needs to be louder. More. 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 Say it again. Okay, you're going to have to do that. Amen. Thank you. Right now, we're going to be led by two phenomenal young ladies. This generation of activists, these young people, are blessing me beyond belief. They give me so much encouragement. So I think it's only appropriate. Michaela, Cleo, I need you to follow these two. They're going to go right over by Bryant, and they're going to start leading the march. And we're going to go out of here saying Black Lives Matter. But before you go, we will be coming back to do a moment of silence. So this is not over. They're going to do a short march around the community, and then we're going to do a moment of silence here for all those that have lost their lives to violence. So everybody with me, Black Lives Matter? Black Lives? Jennifer?